Doki Doki Literature Club, the psychological horror visual novel game that had me trembling in fear as I wrote romantic poems. Well, a dating sim where you flirt with cute girls and write poetry sounds extremely boring to me, honestly, but this one added horror, so let's go. This is truly the most horrifying, terrifying, mind-bending game I have ever played in my entire life. So Japan is arguably the hub for dating sim culture, which is interesting considering the statistics of Japan's stagnation of intimacy and its alarming birth rates, and men literally marrying video games. But stepping away from that sweet clickbait, I do think Doki Doki is an interesting game. It shows us how bizarre the concept of dating sims can be, and how a video game can have such an impact on real-life emotions. So first off, this game doesn't trick you into playing a horror game. You know what you're getting yourself into. You literally sign a waiver. So Dan Salvato, the game's creator, has mentioned that he wanted to create a cliche atmosphere. So basically you think you're getting into a regular dating sim situation, and he wants to subvert those expectations. So visiting those cliche expectations, we've got cliche characters. We have the assertive and adorable Natsuki, shy and mysterious Yuri, and of course the bubbly class president Monika. And we can't forget our excitable, clingy childhood friend Sayori. Dan Salvato wrote this game to poke fun at the classic anime tropes, which we can see are represented in the characters themselves. For example, Genki girl, an overabundance of energy, like our Sayori here. She just wants everyone to have a good time and get along. The Tsundere, the cold, temperamental, hot-headed, before gradually warming up to us over time. That's our Natsuki. She's defensive over her cute nature and style. Then the Yandere, our often sweet, caring girl who switches into someone who displays an extreme, often violent or psychotic level of devotion towards the love interest, i.e. us, as the player. Monika? So basically, to quote Dan, cute girls doing cute things. Dan Salvato wanted to subvert everyone's expectations, make fun of the tropes, and by doing so, I think Dan was trying to show us some deeper meanings that I think some people might have missed during the game. So, adventure with me today, and maybe we'll learn something new. Let's explore how Doki Doki Literature Club critiques the gamification of intimacy. Okay, hear me out. So we all know this game is terrifying, not just because of its jump scares and general feeling of unease, but the helplessness the player feels as created by the game's script. So starting out, these girls love you already, right? They're already fighting for your attention, and the player did absolutely nothing to deserve this. We simply just exist. That's it. And all of these girls are pining for us, the player's attention. But that already makes me extremely uncomfortable. Is that the point of a dating sim? Yes. But is it weird? Yes. Dating sims exist for a multitude of reasons, one of them being to give the player feelings of closeness, intimacy, and importance, just to make the player feel good. Dan chose the title Doki Doki as it refers to the Japanese onomatopoeia for the beating of a heart, or that nice rush you get when you see a crush. It could be described in English as the butterflies in your stomach. So why play a dating sim? The gamification of intimacy comes from Rohil Anaruth in the description below. He uses the example of the incredibly successful film Her, which is centered around a man falling in love with his computer's AI operating system, along with the widely successful series Westworld and Black Mirror, which also address the human capability of intimate relationships to AI. Despite the human knowing that the computer program is not real, people are widely susceptible to having true, intimate emotions towards these programs. Psychologists regard interpersonal intimacy to be at the core of the most fulfilling human social exchanges. Interpersonal intimacy encapsulates love, closeness, support, bonding, attachment, and sexuality. All of these things intertwine, and one is not more important than the other. Now, there isn't a vast supply of studies investigating the effects of dating sims on mental health, but there is a lot of research about the purchase of intimacy in real life. Buyers of intimacy often crave authentic experience. So how does this work if we want to commodify emotional labor? Well, we get dating sims and girlfriend experiences. Dating sims where love is a game, and a game you can win, with people who you can win, with characters who are created to only love you. So now, this game flips that around. The player is no longer the one with the choice. You never really had a choice all along. Monika kills off the characters one by one, deleting them out of the script until it's only the two of you left alone. Just Monika. The player is on the receiving end of the commodification and feels hopelessness when it comes to being sought after, where usually it would be the girls who are at the receiving end of commodification. And in flipping that power dynamic around, it shows us the inherent imbalance and uncomfortability that comes along with being a commodity, making the player feel helpless. In a lot of the game's imagery, the girls are seen reaching out, where this can be interpreted as reaching out to grab the player to capture them, or it can be interpreted as reaching out for help. In these dating sims, emotions are not merely motivations for the player, but emotions are actual commodities in themselves for the game. And those emotional commodities need a medium. And in dating sims in general, and in Doki Doki Literature Club's case, this comes in the form of the girls. Since dating sims usually exist to help the player escape from feelings of loneliness and longing, and to feel closeness and intimacy, Dan Salvato takes advantage of this by subverting those expectations and giving the girls feelings of hopelessness, depression, and loneliness themselves, which makes the player feel uncomfortable because we want to help them, we want to save them, but we are actually the helpless ones. Sayori's death scene has a profound effect on basically everyone who plays this game. The feeling of helplessness again comes into play here. Usually in these types of dating sims or games at all, the player has a general understanding of what to say in order to get the intended reaction, but in this scenario, we don't have the ability to magically make everything better. Just like in real life, we can listen to those we care about who struggle with depression, and there's nothing that we can do to make it better. And at most we can offer comfort, but nothing else. And that frustration that our character is feeling is something that is very natural in a given conversation. It encompasses that harsh duality that yes, you can be there for someone you love and support them, but no, sometimes it's not enough. It's one of my favorite things Dan does in this game. He makes Sayori this loving character. She cares about us joining the club. She wants us to walk to school with her, and she wants us and all the members to be happy. She can even mediate arguments between the club members. But she's a real person with fears and desires. Dan takes these one-dimensional character tropes and puts reasoning behind them, and that makes us uncomfortable because games exist to create a comfortable reality. And when that is stripped away from our games, it becomes almost too much to bear. Because if our games encapsulate not only our dreams but our nightmares too, where do we have to escape? The compounding effect of the character's awareness shows when Natsuki shows her vulnerable side. But not in the tropey Tsundere way, but in the way after Sayori's death, she shows care for Yuri, who she was initially notably jealous of during the beginning of the game. Now, one of the characters isn't just infatuated with us, the player, but she shows concern and affection for those around her. Dan mentioned that the reasoning behind Natsuki's tough exterior, although it's not explicit in the game, Dan shares with us that Natsuki is actually from an abusive household with an abusive father, and she suffers from malnutrition, which causes her small stature, and she is self-conscious of this fact, and that's why she doesn't like being called cute. And sure, the way in which we find out some of the information can be seen as scary because it breaks the fourth wall, but these experiences and how the characters react to them are based off of regular human emotions, and it is this emotional reasoning that is so removed from the regular dating sim games that Dan wanted to incorporate into a game like this. When the game ends, Monika literally deletes the entire game and it is unplayable until you choose to download it again. This can be seen as Monika saving us from the game, but maybe this is because Monika sees this world and our relationship with her, with the player, as inherently toxic. I've linked some psychological studies in the description below, and it is shown that the majority of people who choose to buy intimacy do so because of either the feelings of true authenticity or with the understanding that there's an illusion of authenticity, and their partner pretending is simply enough. But authenticity is what humans crave in intimate relationships, and now, as Monika seemingly gained sentience, it's what she craves too. But instead of working towards that authenticity, she deletes the game. This is because we'll never be able to understand each other truly because of the limitations that exist in dating sims. And in this game, Monika even says, there are no happy endings. No happy endings can really exist, because there can be no authentic happiness. Monika asks us, if this world won't write me an ending, what will it take just for me to have it all? Because authenticity does not exist in the dating sim world, she can't have it all. Monika even attempts to delete herself and set us up for happiness with Sayori, but no, still no authentic happiness exists, and she must delete the game. So if authenticity is truly impossible, is there even a point to the game existing at all? And that's the question Monika leaves with us as we're left with a deleted game. So, should you feel embarrassed to enjoy playing dating sims? No. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with them at all. Dating sims have the potential to impact both positively and negatively, depending on the person. Some of the negatives are it can encourage antisocial personality traits such as ignoring characters' need for consent and encouraging manipulative behavior. But positively, it can provide a means of coping with loneliness or depression, and it allows one to explore their sexuality in a safe environment. But an important thing to remember is no matter what media you consume affects the way you interact with others. This is known as cultivation theory. It's a sociological and communications framework that suggests that people who are regularly exposed to media, especially for longer periods of time, are more likely to perceive the world's social realities as they are presented in the media that they choose to consume, which in turn affects their attitudes and behaviors in real life. According to cultivation theory, media may cultivate people to expect large amounts of seemingly viable, however more than likely not possible alternatives and comparisons for their romantic relationships. For example, people can get used to the lack of consent in games, unearned infatuation that players experience upon booting up a dating sim. The ease of consuming media, dating sims, and alternate realities can encourage a person to have an entitled view of relationships and can potentially lead someone to be an emotionally abusive partner. Of course, it's not that simple saying video games make you more violent, video games make you emotionally abusive. It's not that simple, but consuming this type of media can encourage a person to act in certain ways that are less than desirable in real life situations. And it's important to check ourselves, you know? Like, what am I consuming? What am I feeling when I see these things? And does it affect my relationships with other people? They're valid questions that we should be asking ourselves. Monika even has this back and forth in her own self while telling us that this is just a game and trying to convince herself that she shouldn't care about us as much as she does. But with the prevalence of gaming, it's easy to ignore true life relationships and not learn what it's like to actually interact with real people, with real, complicated, and nuanced emotions. It can lead people to feel like they're owed intimacy and lead people to believe that trust and intimacy isn't something that's slowly earned. It can make people believe that love can be found and not cultivated through enduring the hardships of life together. It can leave people to think intimacy comes easily and can be won like a game. Perhaps, could the prevalence of this type of media be an encouraging factor into the prevalence of incel culture? If not, where else do people get the idea that they have an entitlement to another person's body? How could such a large subset of people believe that they find themselves, quote, unable to find a partner? Anyway, I'll leave you be.
Every day I imagine a future where I can be with you. In my hand is a pen that will write a poem for me and you. Think flows down into a dark puddle. Just move your hand right the way into his heart. But in this world of infinite choices, what will it take just to find that special day? What will it take just to find that special day?